It's been a hell of a year for everyone. But for those of us living in Victoria, Melbourne in particular, re-entering lockdown has been especially tough. Like the rest of the country, we thought we were doing well, even beating COVID-19. But then the virus proved how devious it really is. It escaped containment and recommenced its rampage. Now, because of Victoria, the entire nation is once again on the brink. What remains both galling and inexcusable, though, is how we lost control, a security breach that's caused a catastrophe. Keeping Australia safe is huge business. As well as police and the military, 150,000 private guards are licensed to look after us. It's an industry worth more than $9 billion a year.
It was COVID's cruel blow.
459
to 9,300.
Its deadliest day of the coronavirus.
But in Victoria, a monumental failure of security is now costing the entire nation dearly.
Well, I can't help feeling some days that I am in a scene of a disaster movie.
Tonight, Melbourne's hotel quarantine catastrophe.
You get what you pay for.
How coronavirus has exposed the weaknesses of Victoria's security industry. How do you find your security guards?
Gumtree.com, there's a lot of websites where you can find security guards.
Extraordinary and worrying admissions. So you were tasked with helping to control the spread of the virus, but you in fact think that you were spreading the virus.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
And the damning assessment of those who were supposed to be looked after. What did you fear the most?
Well, probably the security people.
The people that should have been looking after us.
Yeah.
It may even be that every case of COVID-19 in Victoria in recent weeks could be sourced to the hotel quarantine program.
Josh Reeve is a 20-year security veteran, specialising in big money contracts and A-list clients. Do you see this as a botched program?
Yeah, definitely. Unfortunately, it's a result of a cheap and nasty product.
Thank you, guys. We're just going to conduct a mission brief for today's task.
Josh's business, Empire Protection, specialises in crisis management, but wasn't approached when the Victorian government hired security companies to guard hotels full of travellers quarantined after returning home.
It's a high-profile specialist project. I would assume you would look for a high-profile specialist company.
Some might call it sour grapes, but Josh is relieved he didn't get the job. After seeing the disaster in Melbourne, he's not only scathing of his profession, he's embarrassed by it. Is this negligent?
I suppose the reputation of the security industry at the moment in most people's eyes is that it's ineffective, and through some of the things have been alleged is worse than ineffective. I think the fact that the industry has that reputation indicates that it is as bad as it could be. It's negligent, it's complacent.
What's now obvious is the most important security assignment in Melbourne's recent history was a shambles from the start. Even guards who were deployed, people like this IT student we'll call John, say the operation was poorly organised. Have you ever done a job like this before?
No, I have never done the job like this before because this thing just started, so I don't think so anyone has done that thing before.
It was back in April, 3 weeks after the Victorian government announced its plans to hire private security firms to guard quarantine hotels, when John was first contacted. But right from the beginning, the caller was more interested in John's readiness rather than his experience, or lack of it.
He was a subcontractor and he asked me if I'm still willing to work in security. I said, yeah, of course I am. So he said, okay, you just WhatsApp me your license and your availability.
Is it normal to hear from somebody on WhatsApp for a job?
No, not really. That's a bit strange. Like, it's unprofessional, totally unprofessional. And another thing, like, there was no interview.
But it got worse. Not only was there no interview, there was no training.
When I reached there, I asked him, so what are my duties and what I'm supposed to do? He said, go on this floor and ask the other security guard what you're supposed to do. So I went on the floor and I asked the other security guard, and he was like, "Oh, it's also my first day here." Yeah, that's a bit
Seriously?
strange, yeah. Yeah, that was his first day, and then he told me that if someone comes out of the room, we just have to tell them, don't come out of the room, stay inside your room, and that's it. I think that was all. That's my induction, whatever you call it.
Sounds pretty minimal.
Yeah, it is.
For 2 months, John worked at 6 of the 12 quarantine hotels in Melbourne. As bad luck would have it, one of them was the COVID-19 hotspot, the Ridges on Swanston, where a cluster of guards were infected with the virus. He says it's unbelievable he wasn't one of them, considering no one took personal protection seriously.
Everyone has tested positive, and I was sitting there without any PPE. Not only me, like everyone was sitting outside of their rooms without any PPE because they told us not to wear any mask.
It seems crazy that security guards wouldn't wear a mask or other PPE as they went about their work. But here it is in black and white. A Victorian government document that said it wasn't necessary unless it was impossible for a guard to keep a 1.5 metre distance from the people they were looking after. But security guard John fears it was when the shift ended that the problem started.
So if you go like 80 meters left from Ridges on Swanston, you will find a 7-Eleven, and next door is KFC. Every guard used to go there during their break. So, and some of them didn't even know that they have been infected positive and they were going there.
So they were unwittingly, potentially, spreading the virus.
Yeah, you can say that.
Life for those inside the Melbourne quarantine has been just as confused. While return travellers Ricky Singh and Kate Hislop were locked up, they took the pandemic seriously, but felt no one else did. Were either of you tested for coronavirus?
No.
At any point during that 2-week period?
No, not at all.
You were not tested once in 2 weeks
Not
as
once.
return travellers?
No, it was definitely a shock to both of us, yeah.
It's not on, to be honest. I don't understand it, yeah.
But even more concerning for the couple was what was outside their hotel door. What did you fear the most?
Well, probably the security
The people that should have been looking after us.
Yeah, that's right.
Why were you so worried about them?
They weren't wearing masks. They would sleep on the ground and...
Quite often they wouldn't even hear us open our door because they'd have their earphones in or be on their phone or, talking with another security guard, having a laugh. It just seemed, the whole idea of the hotel quarantine seemed like a joke at that point, yeah.
When I saw the other guards, like some of them, they were falling asleep because some of them, they were working 7 days a week, 12 hours a day. So
Is that even legal?
I don't think so, yeah. Working 84 hours a week. I don't think so, it's legal, yeah.
The coronavirus pandemic has shown the reality of the security industry in Melbourne. And that is, a few people make a lot of money, while most people earn very little. John, who works as a guard to help pay for his university education, showed us his bank records. To protect us from COVID, he was paid $20 an hour. The award wage is $28 an hour.
So I think, yeah, it's below the minimum wage, actually.
How is that acceptable? Is this just common practice in the industry?
So these subcontractors, they hire people, they hire students and exploit them, and that's what's going on in this industry.
4 months ago, when the Victorian government turned to the security industry to guard its quarantine hotels, 3 companies received the contract: MSS, Unified and Wilson Security. But these businesses weren't the ones who called guards like John. They used industry subcontractors, middlemen if you like, whose job it is to recruit big numbers of guards as quickly and often as cheaply as possible.
Now, how long you have been working in security industry?
They're subcontractors like Roger.
Well, I'm a subcontractor of a subcontractor.
It's getting a bit confusing.
Yeah, it's a little bit confusing, yeah.
By his own admission, Roger is a divisive character in a tough industry.
Look, we have some opportunities.
He says his business is competitive, which means when he's asked to recruit workers, he'll use any means he can. How do you find your security guards?
It's seek.com and gumtree.com. There's a lot of websites where you can find security guards.
Coming up,
I was told that a guard has sex with the guest.
treating work like play. It's gross negligence, isn't it?
Yeah.
The shameful behaviour
needs to be reviewed so that this doesn't happen again.
the Premier doesn't want to talk about.
From 60 Minutes.
That's the point that I'm trying as politely as I possibly can to make.
That's next on 60 Minutes. Lord Mayor, Melbourne looks pretty different these days.
It really does, and to see our streets virtually empty or relatively empty is really quite depressing.
It's pretty heartbreaking, isn't it?
Yeah.
A normally bustling city, quietened by COVID, is as sad as it is surreal.
The world is completely different, and it's happened in a matter of weeks.
Like every other Victorian, Melbourne Lord Mayor Sally Capp has had to make major adjustments in her life. We were so close to getting on top of this virus, and now it's almost taken control of us. How frustrating is that?
It is frustrating, uncertainty, but a sense of loss of control. I think they really factor into some of the distress that people are feeling at the moment.
Ultimately, we find ourselves in this position because of a policy failure. Do you think the public has a right to be pretty angry, pretty upset right now?
Yeah, I really acknowledge the way that people are feeling about where we find ourselves now in a second lockdown.
The real agony of a second lockdown is that it didn't have to be. An independent inquiry is underway to find out what's gone wrong, but the government already knew there were major problems. 2 years ago, it ordered a review into Victoria's security industry. Yet 4 months ago, it still turned to them to run the hotel quarantine operation. What do you think is wrong with the industry?
There's no proper regulation. There's no proper who's getting work, who's not getting work. There's no criteria. It's like anyone can do anything. It's not a...
This man wants to be heard, but he doesn't want his real name used, so we'll call him Roger. He earns his money as a subcontractor. His skill is being able to quickly supply manpower to the big security firms. It sounds like a bit of a maze of subcontracting. Is that what it is?
Yeah, I mean, maybe that's kind of easy for them to subcontract the work. There's a lot of subcontractor involved in this whole thing.
What's your role then?
My role is to help them with their manpower supply.
So how do you get paid?
I get fees. I get consultancy fees.
In the hotel quarantine operation, the subcontracting worked like this. The companies awarded the government contract, we're told, were paid up to $70 an hour per guard. But because they didn't have the numbers they needed, they subcontracted to smaller firms offering about $50 an hour and taking a big cut. But some of those smaller firms subcontracted again for even less, taking their slice too. It meant men like Roger, at the bottom of the pile, were left to actually find the guards. There was very little money to do that, and they weren't fussy where they looked.
This is more like a labor job. It's not like a engineer or doctor's job, or white collar. It's
A specialised job.
Not a specialised job.
Would they be equipped with the skills necessary to work in a quarantined hotel?
No. They have absolutely no knowledge what to do in this situation because they are not trained for these kind of situations.
While Roger is calling for the industry to be cleaned up, other insiders we've contacted are calling for Roger to come clean. They claim, but he denies, that he's had trouble paying some of his security guards who worked in the quarantine hotels.
What happens is I get paid from the client and then these people get paid. So sometimes I get paid late, then these people get paid late as well.
Do you still have any outstanding payments to these security guards?
No.
There's a list of security guards who say that you haven't paid them yet for their work.
No, I think everybody got paid.
There's some that saying that they haven't been paid and they had to go to police to get paid from you.
No, everyone got paid.
Everyone got paid?
Well, no, most of people got paid. I think 99% are paid. Maybe a couple of people left.
In the murky world of Melbourne security, it would appear this was a disaster waiting to happen. And in fact, emails leaked to the Age newspaper last month showed that within 24 hours of the quarantine hotel program starting, the Victorian government was told by its own bureaucrats that security guards they'd hired weren't up to the job. Not only were they ill-equipped to handle COVID, but some treated work more like play. Did you hear about them sleeping with some of the guests?
Yes. I was told that a guard has sex with the guest, yes.
Security guard John agrees the behaviour of some of his colleagues was appalling, but ultimately he blames the bosses. How was this allowed to happen? Shouldn't there have been measures in place to prevent the guards from...
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, from the very first point, I'm saying no proper training. By training, I mean mayor protocols. Like, there must be some standards and protocols.
It's gross negligence, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, absolutely.
The total damage bill for Victoria's hotel quarantine bungle will likely never be known. People have lost their lives, and the Australian economy has been hit like never before.
The experts will tell us what, if any, next steps.
As the number of people infected with the virus goes up, Premier Daniel Andrews' job gets tougher.
Premier Sarah Abo here from 60 Minutes. Do you know much about the security guards themselves that were deployed to this critical role, and do you appreciate that perhaps these people weren't the right people for this role?
I'm not here today to talk about the security industry. That's not a matter for me to determine. That is a matter for another process.
There is frustration in the community that we are here. You're frustrated as well, we know that too.
No. I think there is a very big challenge that we all face, and I'm very much focused on dealing with that challenge.
Why weren't the police used?
I don't want to be discourteous or disrespectful in any way. I have answered these questions many different times. I would again confirm for you, we have a process. It is not about the government sitting in judgment of itself. It is at arm's length as it should be.
With respect, those questions are being asked because the answers aren't there.
Because the answers are to be provided by the retired judge and the judicial inquiry. I think that's the point that I'm trying as politely as I possibly can to make.
Regardless of what any inquiry discovers, if nothing else, security specialist Josh Reeve says the wipeout caused by this second wave must lead to a clean-up of the entire security industry.
It's an industry that just has no respect from clients, from employers, from every piece of the puzzle. So I think now, from bottom to top, everyone, no matter their position or their conflict, needs to be reviewed so that this doesn't happen again.
Back in the relative safety of their home south of Sydney, Kate Hislop and Ricky Singh are thankful they made it through 2 weeks of quarantine in Melbourne. But it's no thanks to the guards who are meant to be watching out for us all.
Absolutely, we're very lucky considering the lack of, safety people were taking around us. So we're very grateful to come away, happy and healthy from that experience, yeah.
Hello, I'm Sarah Abo. Thanks for watching. To keep up with the latest from 60 Minutes Australia, make sure you subscribe to our channel. You can also download the 9Now app for full episodes and other exclusive 60 Minutes content.